You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 208. And today we're going to break free of your upper limits and help you finally achieve that next level of success. You ready for this? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Hey, are you a thought leader, creative entrepreneur, or change maker and want to magnify your impact, boost influence while creating a financial abundance? Stay tuned for today's inspiring episode with your host, Melanie Benson.
Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson, profit amplifier and your visibility catalyst. And today we're going to talk about upper limits. This has been something that has been coming up everywhere for everyone, and we've got to tackle it. Because if you want to accomplish something that you've never accomplished before, you're going to have to tackle some of the inner game issues that are keeping you stuck exactly where you are. So I'm going to unpack what an upper limit really is, what the signs are that you're hitting an upper limit. And some of these things might actually surprise you. How you can discover what is keeping you stuck in an upper limit, and how to dismantle its hold over your future success. So we got a lot to cover today, and this is a preview of a training I'm going to be doing in the Amplify Inner Circle. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I am obsessed with helping people amplify their authority, expand their reach, to be able to create that predictable, consistent income. But there's just something about the mindset, the inner game, the way in which we make decisions, how we think about success. And having coached entrepreneurs for 20 years now and having my own experiences with upper limits and mindset limits and all of that, I know that upper limits can be one of those things that actually keeps you locked in to a certain level of success and literally put you in this place where you think that you're convinced you can't achieve more, that you can't accomplish that next level success. But if we could dismantle these upper limits and help you become aware of what's really happening, you're going to open a flood of new opportunity, new thinking. It's almost like you literally raise your game. And that's a lot of what we do in Amplify Inner Circle is raise your game. Help you become the person. We literally supercharge you and amplify strategies that you may have dismissed or put off or never seemed to have time for because you've been stuck in this trap. And one of the things that I love about what's going to happen in Amplify Inner Circle is we're integrating what I call the Supercharge You calls with strategy, because what I know is that strategy without the inner game, without the supercharged version of you, is not going to go anywhere, because I've coached people for 20 years now and have given them the best strategies. But if the mindset's not in the right place, if the beliefs do not match the reality that you are creating, if your vision is not pulling you forward, you will not do a thing. And I've literally had people spend thousands of dollars in mastermind, hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on programs, investing in one mentor after another, only to discover that they were upper limiting themselves. And so they were putting their focus outside of themselves instead of becoming the person who could really pull it off, because their beliefs, their ideas, and their paradigm match the amplified reality that they're calling in. Now, by the way, if you're interested in Amplify Inner Circle, we still have a few seats left in the founders level. The founders level is a beautiful opportunity to lock in 50% off this program. So normally Amplify Inner Circle is $197 a month, or it's $19.97 for the year, which is well worth every single penny you invest in yourself and in this next level of success. But I wanted to do something special and really make it doable for everybody. And so at $97 a month, if you get the founders level, you will also get everything the full rate gets. And that's at amplifyinnercircle.com. That's our Supercharge call every month, our Hour of Power strategy call. You get access to the replays and the learning library, where I give you templates and systems and really show you how to do all the different parts of success, create a visibility strategy, map out a revenue rush plan, enroll your perfect clients, figure out who those perfect clients are, and create the messaging that'll attract them in. We're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together and creating a roadmap for you to be able to follow, but also to be able to really customize it along the way at a really reasonable investment that makes it doable for everyone. And so I have a funny story about Amplify Inner Circle and upper limits that kind of coincides with this lesson today. So why don't we just transition right into what upper limits are? And I'll share this funny story. So I used to have a membership type program, I guess it was like 12 years ago. And I stopped doing it because it just felt kind of disconnected for me. It wasn't really feeling like that place that I was inspired, excited by it. Technology was changing. And so putting out a CD in the mail every month felt a little cumbersome and expensive. And so I just kind of closed it up and went into my new directions. But there's something really unique about that idea that people can access knowledge every month and they can tap into the collective wisdom of a group. And so I've been having Amplify Mastermind for many years, and I realize that not everybody's right for Amplify Mastermind. And some people aren't ready to and don't know how to make that kind of investment yet. Maybe that's an upper limit, or it's just too much of a stretch, whatever that is, because it is a 5-figure investment in your business and you. And my team kept saying, Melanie, we need a membership program. And I thought, no, I don't know if I want to do that. And so over the course of this year, when I really start to see that people and their buying power was changing, and this is the year that we went through coronavirus, we had a lot of upheaval in the United States, a lot of really significant changes in the conversations we're having and the way we connect with each other. I mean, the landscape of coaching and online businesses has shifted a bit. And people are getting more and more discerning. And I've noticed that people are investing in really big ticket items like personalized one-on-one or done for you, but they also were really enjoying those easier investments. And that's when I finally had this shift. And I realized as I was putting today's episode together, it's like, I think I was actually in an upper limit. I was in an upper limit of what the range was, is how I thought my superpowers would translate. And as we put this together and I started sharing with people, and before I was even getting the doors open to Amplify Inner Circle, people were like, tell me when I can sign up. I'm ready. I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, this is good. And I realized how often we hold ourselves back from that next level of potential impact and success because our paradigm is locked into it needing to look a certain way. And I've certainly had my own dance with that over the years because I can get very fixated or locked in to things looking a certain way. And so one of my stretch things for the next 12 months and probably forever is to continue to look at the ways that we could adapt faster and really be nimble and flexible to what's emerging in our industry. So there's a lot more to that story. Maybe I'll share the whole story someday if you're interested. But it was really interesting timing with the upper limits because I was also recognizing that some of the people I've been coaching had been bumping up against this upper limit. Now, if upper limit is a term that you're unfamiliar with, let me just say where it came from and what an upper limit is. And then we're going to talk about the signs that you are in an upper limit problem. So an upper limit is what Gay Hendricks coined in his book, The Big Leap, which I give to everyone in Mastermind, that you are locked into a safety zone. And it's the subconscious's way of ensuring that we stay safe. And so think of it like this, that let's say there's 2 tracks and there's an upper track and a lower track. And most of us kind of ride between those 2 tracks all the time. And what happens and I like to think of it like there's an internal limiter, kind of like a limiter on a car, especially in the United States. The government puts a limit on how fast you can go in a car. And so think of it like that, or a thermometer that you hit a certain temperature And once you hit that limit, you combust. That's the best way to think of it. And so if you think about these two tracks or these limits, what is within the two tracks or within the limits is where you live. And subconsciously, we hook to that. We anchor in there because it's comfortable, because it's what we know how to do. And if you start to raise your game, which we want, right? Like most of us want to achieve more. We're high achievers. We have bigger goals. We want to accomplish more in the world. So there's a next level we're wanting to achieve, but we have to push through that upper limit, that place where comfortably we know how to do it and what to do. And so that energy that we have to use to push through that upper limit creates tension. And that tension starts to have a kickback. Almost, if you've ever gone shooting at the range, I mean, when we were kids, we used to go shooting shotguns with my dad, and there was this moment when you shoot the shotgun or the BB gun or whatever it is, and there's a little bit of a kickback. And that's what happens, is there's a kickback, and that kickback is where we self-sabotage. That kickback, that tension, that draining energy creates a frequency of chaos, a frequency of fear, a frequency of uncertainty, because we're probably doing things outside of ourselves. We're stretching outside to that next level, and we don't know how to do that yet. And it also has this really interesting impact on you finally break through to that next level, but it's so unknown, it's so uncomfortable that all of a sudden the sabotage kicks in and you dismantle everything that you've worked for. And I can tell you story after story after story, author, coaches, big name entrepreneurs who share stories of how they had to come to terms with their upper limit and reprogram themselves so that that upper limit didn't hold them back. It was just information. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at where your, comfort zone kicks in, and what do you need to do to start dismantling that upper limit. So instead of sabotaging when you push through it, it might be uncomfortable, but you become aware and you can actually use that as information to grow with. Now, when I started to study about this, probably a good 12 years ago, I was going through a really challenging time in my business. I was super close to breaking seven figures and just on the edge of fully, being in a seven-figure business. And I had hit a major upper limit. And basically everything that I worked hard for started to unravel, super painful. And a friend of mine was talking about going through something similar and shared a book by Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. And I started reading this upper limit and I went, ding, ding, ding. Okay, now I know what's happening. And it gave me a tool in my toolbox to start to shift my consciousness and my vibration and my way of being so that that upper limit was more tolerable and then, could be more comfortable. So what I recognize for myself and anyone who's gone through this is there are some common signs. And if I don't hit one of the signs it's happening to you, but you suspect you're in an upper limit, just know there's a lot of different ways we upper limit ourselves. But one of the really common ones is you've hit a new level of success and all of a sudden, everything goes wrong. You start to have team breakdowns. You have technology issues. You get a bunch of sales and people ask for refunds. Or all of a sudden you get sick and you can't deliver on it. Everything that could go wrong starts to go wrong. And it's a really frustrating moment when you realize, oh, yes, I'm upper limiting. But the key is to not judge yourself, okay? Whatever you see in yourself as these signs, the key is to not judge yourself. Do not be angry with yourself. Be gentle and compassionate and recognize that this is good because you're growing, okay? So sign number one is everything is going wrong. I want to tap into one of the things I just said. And as you get sick or hurt, and it's like confusing, you're like, why? I'm like perfectly normally happy. So the body's way of getting your attention is to get sick. A client of mine was just going through a really big growth spurt and was getting on a really good roll, and she teared, a tendon in her knee. Really crazy accident. Like the dog leapt, she was braced, couldn't respond fast enough. Her knee got twisted wrong. Okay, so getting sick or getting hurt a lot or in really weird ways. You find yourself talking yourself out of a next level opportunity, a business model, something your coach is asking, and you literally convince yourself that it will not work for you. Okay, so it becomes everyone can see it but you. And so you have a really firm story on why it won't work and convince yourself that you cannot do it. And so some sister ones to that is you have an idea of what success is supposed to look like, and you cannot break free of that idea, and that idea feels in conflict with what's emerging for you. You might also find that you are hiding out in what I like to call the invisibility cloak. Literally, like, you know you're a best kept secret and you feel invisible. And in order to break free of that invisibility, you rationalize that you do not have time or you are not ready for the strategies. I had this happen with a client. We have a tool in Amplify Your Circle, which is a visibility planning system. It's like we look at where your visibility opportunities are, and then, I help you map out the way in which you can get yourself in front of ideal clients, create a whole slew of new opportunities coming your way. It's like very powerful and it works very well. But I was noticing a lot of people never had time for it. And I'm like, I know you have time. You're not prioritizing it. And that's one of the things we do in Upper Limits is we find reasons to not do the things that will work, and we stay busy with things that are keeping us stuck where we are right now. Okay, so another piece of this is you get that coveted client, you get that next big opportunity, but somehow you forget to follow through on it, or you don't make time to really engage it properly, and it falls apart, or you sabotage it, or it doesn't go well, and then you convince yourself, see, this wasn't right for me anyway. Or you lose the sale, or you just don't enjoy it. Okay, so there's a lot of pieces of it, but you're going for that next level, you're getting that next level, and it somehow falls apart. And then I think this last piece that is super common is you recognize you're not hitting that next level. And you may have actually even invested in a coach. You may have invested in a mastermind or hired like a really amazing team member, or you've shared some things with a spouse or a friend or a colleague, and you got some advice and it's not working. The thing that you're doing is not working. And so you blame that other entity, whoever that is, for your lack of success. You blame them for it not working, and maybe even blame them for spending money that you think you shouldn't have spent to get results that are not making you happy. And this is huge, because what happens sometimes is people invest, but they don't do the work. They invest, but they don't actually integrate that inner beingness that creates success with the external strategy, and so they suffer and struggle along. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I am saying that when you look at why you're not achieving something, the upper limit is I blame that person instead of taking ownership of the lack of action or the lack of integration or the lack of time that you gave something to really work. So blaming others, specifically someone that you've invested in for your lack of success. Now, that's assuming they delivered, right? But even still, like, really pay attention to where you're blaming or judging others. Those are signs that you're in an upper limit. So I could go on, but those are some of the biggies, is you're finding a reason, and consciously or unconsciously, for that next level being inaccessible. Now, there's some very specific things, and these seem to be the most common signs, and there's 5 of them. 1, you can't get past a certain level of income, no matter what. 2, no matter what, you always have the same number of clients or sales. So you do a launch, you get the same sales. You do a speaking gig, you get the same number of sales. It's like you cannot break free of that particular level. Number 3, you are locked in an over-efforting, overworking, and or over-delivering in order to make the value match what you believe is valuable. Number 4, when you are cooking, you start to get some traction, you put on the brakes for some reason. Again, it could be something happens, you get sick, you get hurt, family emergency, all of it totally realistic, but somehow you put on the brakes. And 5, you literally convince yourself over and over and over again that it's not your time to invest in your growth. And you have a lot of really great reasons why, and they all make perfect sense. But if you want that next level and you convinced yourself it's not time, or you don't have the money, or you don't have the resources, or you're not far enough along, that's a sign. When you recognize you're in the upper limit, you will be tempted to get frustrated because you may have already been looking at this. You may have done a lot of work and invested a lot of money and a lot of tools and a lot of coaching and a lot of support. And I really want to acknowledge you in this moment if that's where you are and you're listening to this and you're like, Melanie, how do I finally dismantle my upper limits? For some of us, this is a lifelong opportunity to grow. And for others, you will lock in and you will get a practice in place that will help you recognize those upper limits before they dismantle you, before they kick in. And some of us will be in the middle, right? And so the first thing to recognize is when you're hitting an upper limit, this is a good thing. This means you're growing. It means you're stretching. It means you're letting yourself expand. And it may not feel good, but that doesn't mean it's not good. Sometimes growth feels messy and chaotic and uncomfortable and shitty and expensive, right? Like, who else has been feeling that lately? I want to hear from you in our new Amplify Your Authority group. So if you're in the free Facebook community and you're listening to this, I want to hear from you on this because I recognize that upper limits feel messy. And our human nature is to retract from messy, to retract from chaos, to want to put it in order. I know I certainly do. I'm an order person. But sometimes we can't, and we have to move through it. It's a process to recognize what the good in it, to recognize how we're supposed to grow. Okay, so first recognize if you're hitting upper limits, this is a good thing. And what I want you to do in your second step is literally name it. Okay, I'm hitting an upper limit. See, review the signs, review the things we just went over, those 5 core signature signs that you're in an upper limit. Name it, claim it, recognize the hold it's having over you, and do not beat yourself up. Do not get frustrated. Be gentle and say, look, I'm in an upper limit. So I'm either going to reach out to my coach, I'm going to share it with my mastermind, I'm going to put it in the group, or you can also start to just follow a very simple process of, if this is my upper limit, then how do I unravel the limiting belief and upgrade that belief so that it's not derailing me. It's not holding me back anymore. So I think one of the most powerful things we do as human beings is recognize where our beliefs are not serving us. And sometimes they are very much in our blind spot. And this may require a coach. This may require, if you're in Amplify Your Circle, we are going to dig deep on this. You have to know what is in the way in order to heal it. We have to reveal it to heal it. And so see if you can name what the limit is and identify the limiting belief or the fear that's attached to it, and what would an upgraded belief look like? Okay, now if you were in Amplify Your Circle, one of the things that we'll be working with, and eventually you'll have a planner that shows up in your mailbox, one of the gifts you get, and one of the exercises in the planner is how to unravel, how to dismantle limiting beliefs and upgrade your thinking. This will also be one of the lessons in the Amplify Your Circle in 2021. So you can let us know this is a priority for you. Now, the third step is you've got to supercharge your vision of what's possible. what I've noticed is that oftentimes the reason why the upper limit is kicking in is because you're moving away from something you don't want in your life instead of moving towards what you do want. And there's just something really, really powerful about being pulled towards a vision. It's more sustainable. It's more in flow. If you're moving away from something you don't want, there's a limit that kicks in, because at a certain point when you no longer have what you don't want, but you are not necessarily locking into something you do want, your subconscious mind is like, I don't know what to do anymore. And so it starts to self-sabotage because it needs a problem to fix. It needs to keep moving away from the thing you don't want because it doesn't know what else to do. And so this is a really deep mindset work. It's part of what is important about recognizing your vision is pulling you. And so if you find that you're constantly in a trap of a business that you don't love, or you're working way too hard for way too little results, if you don't like some of the situations that are occurring in your life right now, chances are you are pushing away from something you don't want and you're not pulling towards what you do want. And so a quick fix is to create a vision that is so inspiring, so exciting, so powerful that it pulls you towards it. And if that feels completely scary and it's like, Melanie, I have no idea how to do that, you definitely need to join Amplify Inner Circle, because this is one of the first things we do. And some people have never really understood that they don't have a vision, and that's why they're constantly moving away from problems instead of moving towards what they do want. Number 4 is to look at your values. So your values are driving every behavior you have, every choice you make, every goal you set. Your values are like an undercurrent that are constantly feeding you. It's feeding your inspiration, it's feeding your focus, it's feeding your attention. And so if you have a pattern of sabotaging results, or you have find that you don't really put your attention on the things that actually serve you, chances are your values are not aligned with the business you're creating. They're aligned with who you were in the past. And you need to do a values realignment. Okay, so that's a topic for another podcast, but just write that down, as your values may need to be realigned. And then last, this is something that I find really, really powerful. And I learned this in my first year of college at San Diego State, when I took a class. It was like a life skills class of some kind. I don't even remember what the class was, but I loved this class so much. And it was my first foray into stretching out of our comfort zone. And our professor gave us an exercise. Every day we had to do something different. And what he was doing is he was teaching us the power of stepping out of our comfort zone. And so for you, what I want you to think about is, how are you stretching yourself into uncomfortableness? How are you challenging your limits every day? What are you doing to create a new reality that's stretchy and make uncomfortableness and unknown more of a norm for you? So there's levels that this could look like. One of the things I always do is I'm always looking for little things that make me uncomfortable, but doing them is good for me. Okay, let me say that again. I'm looking for, and sometimes it's big things, little or big tasks that stretch me, make me uncomfortable, and are good for me. They are good for the goal that I'm wanting to accomplish. And that could be anything from challenging myself to add more exercise. It could be doing something like, if you caught my episode in 2019 about, I was with my family and I did a hike that was really outside my comfort zone, but I knew if I didn't do it, I'd be mad at myself for the rest of my life. And that was a huge stretch. It was good for me. It was hard. It was scary. It was like overwhelming, and it was good for me. And that's something I want you to really look at. What are you doing to stretch yourself, your mind, your habits, your behaviors, your thinking? What are you doing to stretch yourself? Stretch yourself regularly, make it the norm. And the more you stretch yourself regularly and make it the norm, the easier it is for you to allow new ideas in and evaluate them for alignment. Okay, so instead of holding yourself back because you're like, nah, I don't know, that's not really my thing, you will recognize, yes, there's something to that feels like it could be worth exploring. So the more you stretch yourself, the easier it is to recognize new opportunities that will amplify your reach, your revenue, your income, your impact, your authority. And know when they're aligned or when they're just a bright, shiny idea that isn't really your idea and you don't have to say yes to it. But you'll never recognize them if you're not stretching yourself. And so what is the stretch for you this year? As we're closing this year, what was the stretch that you want to acknowledge in yourself? Like, this was a challenging year for a lot of people. And I know you probably stretched yourself. So acknowledge what you did stretch into this year. Even if it was starting to listen to a podcast or you made time for something that you never made time for before. And where do you know the stretches in the new year? Okay, if you're in our free Facebook group, I want to hear from you. What is the stretch that you'll commit to for 2021? We'll create some conversation about that. And you can always post in there and share, what is your stretch going to be? I want to know how you're going to stretch yourself. And so is that getting into a paid investment of a mastermind, or maybe it's Amplify Inner Circle, or working with a coach, or investing in a program to help you learn and master a skill set? Is it hiring help? Is it actually pursuing a new direction in your business? What's going to be the stretch? Is it going to be getting yourself out there and allowing yourself to have more visibility? How will you stretch? Recognizing your upper limits means that you allow yourself the grace to not have to be perfect, to recognize when you're in your own way, and to allow yourself a process that will help you grow and expand your capability and your capacity for success. That's what Amplifying is all about. That's what we're all about here in this program. And it's about asking yourself the right questions, the most powerful questions you can to shift your thinking to that which is in alignment with what you want. Okay, so questions are such a powerful way to recognize and dismantle those upper limits. So much to cover and so little time in these episodes, right? So let's check in, come share in the Amplify Your Authority group. What's going to be your stretch? And do you recognize any of these signs of upper limiting? Is it time to break free of them? I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts. And whatever you do, really allow yourself to stretch into that most powerful version of you in this next year. The world needs what you do. And the only way they get to experience you if you're willing to amplify your success. This is Melanie Benson, your host. Thanks so much for listening in today. If you want to catch up on any of the show notes and circle back on any of the resources we shared in today's show, head on over to the show page at amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. And remember, you amplify your results faster when you're in a community of other people who are moving and shaking. Join us at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. One last thing. When you've gained insight from today's episode, help us share that and inspire other people by heading over to iTunes, subscribing, and give it a review. iTunes absolutely loves seeing these reviews pop up, and it actually helps boost my show's visibility. So I would be super grateful for your reviews. And as always, I love seeing your shares of these episodes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come find me over there. Tag me in your shares. I'll give you some social media love right back. So see you next week for another inspiring episode of Amplify Your Success Podcast.